Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Strategic Intelligence, Translating APAC Threats to Business Risk, brought to you by EclecticIQ and TeamT5. My name is Andy, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we get started, I'd just like to run through a few quick housekeeping items. The duration of today's webinar is scheduled to be 1 hour. We've reserved time at the end of the session for Q&A, so please submit your questions via the chat window at any time. If we don't get to your question, don't worry, we'll follow up with you afterwards to provide you with an answer. This webinar will be available on demand shortly after the session, and you'll receive a follow-up email with the link should you wish to watch again or share with your network. Finally, I'd like to direct your attention to the Attachments tab, where you can find additional resources related to the webinar. Now I'd like to briefly introduce today's speakers. First up, we have Jay Sear, who is Head of Global Business Development at TeamT5. With over a decade of experience across the region, Jay works closely with service providers and enterprises to deliver advanced cybersecurity solutions. He holds a master's in AI and Big Data and an executive MBA, blending technical and business expertise. Jay is a frequent attendee at cybersecurity conferences and is dedicated to helping organizations stay ahead of threats from Asia's most advanced actors. Next, we have Ada Buyukaya, Senior Cyber Threat Intelligence Analyst at EclecticIQ, with a proven track record in delivering actionable intelligence that empowers Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and policymakers to make strategic and informed security decisions. Ada specializes in tracking financially motivated cybercriminals and nation-state threat actors. Finally, Ben Webster is a CTI specialist with a background in intelligence, security operations, and systems engineering. Ben has a wealth of experience building intelligence practices and providing consulting for new and existing customers of EclecticIQ. A warm welcome to all of you. Thrilled to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. And with that, let's begin today's presentation. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to challenge a widespread myth that cyber threats are just local, or at most regional. The truth is that understanding cyber threats through a regional lens, particularly the Asia Pacific, is not just helpful, it's critical for organizations in Europe, the US, and across the globe. Why is this? Because today's adversaries don't respect borders. They're connected, resourceful, and operate like global crime syndicates. Many of the cyber attacks that hit Western organizations, think governments, banks, or critical infrastructure, are born or battle-tested in the Asia-Pacific region. Let me walk you through 3 strategic reasons why APAC-specific threat intelligence is a game changer for your threat intelligence platform. First, the Asia-Pacific region is a hotbed for some of the most advanced cyber threats on the planet. We're talking state-backed hackers, criminal networks, and hybrid groups that mix espionage with profit-driven schemes. Consider APT-41, a Chinese-linked group. They're notorious for dual-purpose attacks, stealing secrets for espionage and cashing out for profit, often in the same campaign. They've hit healthcare, telecoms, and gaming industries, not just in Asia, but across North America and Europe. Or take Mustang Panda. They start with hyper-localized phishing, targeting Southeast Asian ministries or embassies. Think tailored emails that exploit cultural nuances. But once they perfect these tactics, they scale up, hitting NGOs and diplomatic targets in Europe, especially during global summits or political flashpoints. Why does this matter to you? Because APAC is where these actors test drive their attacks. They refine malware, hone social engineering, and find payloads that slip past defenses. Once proven, these tactics go global. Here's a real case. In early 2024, a spear phishing toolkit tied to a Vietnamese group targeted businesses in Hanoi. Within 3 months, that same toolkit, tweaked only slightly, was used against energy firms in Australia and law firms in New York. With APAC-focused intelligence in your threat intelligence platform, you're not just reacting, you're getting an early warning system. You see the threats before they cross your borders. That brings us to our second point. Let's talk supply chains. Modern businesses are deeply interconnected with Asia Pacific. Whether it's manufacturing in Taiwan, cloud services in Singapore, or logistics in South Korea, these links are your digital lifeline and a prime target for attackers. Every node in your supply chain is a potential weak link. A breach in APAC can ripple across your operations, even if you're headquartered in London or Chicago. Take ShadowPad, a stealthy backdoor used by Chinese actors. It first surfaced in attacks on software providers in Hong Kong and India. From there, it spread through compromised software updates, hitting companies in Europe and the US. In one case, a breach at a Taiwanese chip maker led to intellectual property theft at a US autonomous vehicle startup. In another, a South Korean data center compromise gave attackers access to encrypted communications between European defense contractors. So what's the lesson? Well, if you're only watching for threats after they hit your network, you're already behind. A platform with APAC-specific intelligence gives you upstream visibility. It tracks threats at their source, where your data, components, or partners are, helping you stop attacks before they cascade to your doorstep. Now let's zoom out to the bigger picture. Cyber attacks don't happen in isolation. They're tied to real-world events. Geopolitical tensions in the Asia-Pacific region, such as the South China Sea disputes, China-Taiwan relations, or the Quad Alliance dynamics, shape cyber activity. Every diplomatic shift can spark a wave of cyber attacks. In mid-2024, after a US-Taiwan trade summit, we saw a surge in spear phishing targeting Taiwanese infrastructure linked to APT10, a group with suspected Chinese ties. Weeks later, the same malware showed up in attacks on defense contractors in the UK and Germany. Or consider India-Pakistan tensions. During flare-ups, we see hacktivist campaigns, website defacements and disinformation, starting in South Asia but quickly targeting diaspora communities in the US and Canada. Here's the key. Understanding why these groups act is as critical as how they attack. A threat intelligence platform with APAC intelligence doesn't just give you technical indicators like IP addresses or malware signatures. It provides context, the motivations, the triggers, and the next likely target. Without this context, are you really prepared for what's coming? So here's the takeaway. APAC-specific threat intelligence isn't about collecting more data. It's about collecting the right data. Intelligence that's timely, contextual, and actionable. A threat intelligence platform enriched with APAC insights doesn't just bolster your security operations, it empowers strategic decision-making, helping you prioritize risks, inform boardroom discussions, and strengthen partnerships with global stakeholders. If your threat intelligence doesn't include Asia-Pacific, it's incomplete. It's like forecasting fine weather while ignoring the clouds gathering offshore. Let's make sure your organization isn't caught off guard. Our platform delivers real-time, APAC-focused intelligence from adversary tactics to supply chain risks to geopolitical triggers. It's the edge you need to stay ahead of global threats. And with that, I'll hand over to Jay to explain a little bit more about TeamT5. Over to you, Jay.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of understanding threat intelligence in the APAC region, Andy. So I'm honored to introduce TeamT5, a leading cybersecurity company headquartered in Taiwan with a branch office in Japan. With over a decade of experience and 150 plus cybersecurity experts, we provide advanced solutions in threat intelligence, intelligence-driven threat hunting and endpoint security, as well as incident response solutions to clients across both public and public sectors worldwide. It's important to recognize that nearly 40% of all attacks in Asia target Taiwan, making it the most attacked country in the region. Taiwan often serves as a testing ground where adversaries, particularly those from China and North Korea, refine their malware and TTPs before they deploy them globally. Being headquartered in Taiwan gives TeamT5 a unique vantage point. We have firsthand access to cyber attacks as they unfold. By analyzing malware artifacts collected through our incident response services and working closely with government partners across Asia, we're able to transform these insights into actionable intelligence that helps our clients stay ahead of evolving threats. TeamT5's threat intelligence is built around 5 key pillars: APTs, vulnerabilities, Chinese cyber affairs, dark web intelligence, and actionable tools. APT intelligence delivers deep analysis of threat actors, their targets, and TTPs, helping organizations understand the evolving threat landscape. Vulnerability intelligence focuses on high-impact, actively exploited vulnerabilities with TeamT5's threat ratings, IOCs, and in-depth reports to enable quick mitigation. Chinese Cyber Affairs tracks cyber developments in the Chinese-speaking world, including policies, regulations, and incidents, such as DeepSeek's alleged ties to Chinese military operations. Dark web intelligence uncovers leaked credentials on the dark web and our unique coverage on Chinese-speaking forums, Telegram, WeChat, and QQ. The actionable tools include Yara, Cigna, Snort rules, and scripts for integration into EDR, XDR, SIEM, IDS, IPS, and tips like EclecticIQ. Together, these pillars form a comprehensive threat intelligence capability, one that equips our clients with not just information, but actionable and strategic insights. Here are some screenshots from our threat landscape report last year, highlighting the top APT groups in Asia, their key targets, and common TTPs. One media coverage I would like to highlight is NHK's coverage on TeamT5's analysis of the iSoon leak. This leak exposed over 500 internal emails from a Chinese state-linked cyber contractor, revealing tools, tactics, and target lists tied to espionage campaigns conducted for China's People's Liberation Army and Ministry of State Security. It confirmed China's reliance on private firms like iSoon to carry out cyber operations, particularly targeting Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Southeast Asia. TeamT5 was among the first company to analyze documents and connecting them to ongoing APT activities, offering rare insights into China's contractor-based cyber ecosystem. And as a trusted cybersecurity advisor to the Taiwanese and Japanese governments, our intelligence and experts have been featured in major global media outlets. Moreover, as a leader in providing threat intelligence, we've also been recognized by Frost Sullivan for 2 consecutive years as a top intelligence leader. Now with that, I'd like to hand over the mic to Arda, who will share how threat intelligence empowers organizations to stay ahead of emerging threats.
Thank you very much, Jay. Today I will be speaking about exploitation of Ivanti mobile manager and subnet waiver solutions by China Nexus nation-state threat actors, and what can organizations learn from these incidents. Between April and May, EclecticIQ analysts observed China Nexus APT groups started to exploit Ivanti endpoint mobile manager and subnet waiver solutions. Both of these softwares are widely used by enterprise and government entities. I created a simple event timeline to show you how closely the start time of these different intrusions align and similarities in targeted software for initial compromise. On April, TeamT5 researchers shared the exploitation of Ivanti Connect Secure VPN. And almost 1 month later, we started to observe the exploitation of another Ivanti solution, and again attributed to China Nexus APT with similar large scale of high-value victimology. This is a good example of return on investment style exploitation, threat actors choosing previously disclosed but unpatched vulnerabilities to gain remote access on high-value targets. These 3 different intrusions have similar high-value victimology from government entities, airport operators, financial services, or telecommunications. Since the list is quite large, I visualized the confirmed breach in a victimology graph to clearly show which industries were targeted and specific countries linked to each case. EclecticIQ analysts closely monitored the activities of the China Nexus threat groups as they conduct their cyber attacks. Based on our analysis, we assessed that these exploitation efforts very likely served as intelligence collection objective and supporting the strategic interest of the People's Republic of China. Given Ivanti Endpoint Mobile Manager's role in managing, configuring the enterprise mobile devices, a successful exploitation could grant threat actors access to sensitive data, such as phone numbers, SIM details, device locations, or employee identities, and so on. Depending on the privilege level, attackers could potentially remotely access, manipulate, and compromise thousands of mobile devices across the enterprise network. In this image, we are looking at two distinct intrusion sets, each marked with the blue umbrella icons representing separate exploitation chains, targeting SubNetWaver and Ivanti Endpoint Manager Mobile. The visual you see is created from EclecticIQ Threat Intelligence Platform's graph view, which enables us to map this connection and uncover hidden correlations between seemingly unrelated intrusions. Although these intrusions leverage different initial access vectors, but the connections show us that post-exploitation tooling is similar. Both of the attackers deploy the same malware families like Crusty Loader and Silver to establish persistence remote access. This overlap in tooling and similar attack patterns is critical to demonstrate how threat actors basically conducting their operations, and intelligence help us to link what initially appear to be isolated incidents. It is actually, there is a connection, a deeper operational relationship between these two separate attack campaigns. Following the initial compromise, we have observed that China Nexus APT groups are trying to move to cloud services after compromising the services like Ivanti and SubNetWaver. They are trying to look for Active Directory details like VMware ES6, and then collecting the credentials to move through the Microsoft 365. As we wrap up, there are several key lessons to take away from these intrusions. First, Internet exposed web services must be top priority in your threat model. Many of the initial compromises we observed exploited services that were left exposed to the Internet. Second, China Nexus nation-state actors aren't just targeting government entities, they are also going after enterprise organizations, from finance to healthcare, that power our daily lives. Third, our investigation reflects that cloud services are primary targets for lateral movement, providing attackers with scalable access to sensitive environments by stealing Office 365 access tokens. Finally, regardless of the size, every organization needs threat intelligence to make informed decisions and take actions that is being easily to scalable, and then developing detection against these emerging threats. And thank you very much for your listening. Back to the Jay.
Thank you, Arda, for your insights on the SubNetWaver and Ivanti Endpoint Manager mobile vulnerabilities. I will continue by sharing our findings on how a Chinese APT exploits Ivanti Connect Secure vulnerabilities to launch global attacks. So Ivanti Connect Secure is a popular SSL VPN solution around the world. However, due to its popularity, it also makes it a frequent target for threat actors, especially ones with capabilities in exploiting critical vulnerabilities. In January and April this year, Ivanti disclosed two critical stack buffer overflow vulnerabilities in Ivanti Connect Secure, each carrying a CVS score of 9. Successful exploitation allows the threat actor to achieve remote code execution, leading to intrusion on the internal network and malware implementation. Notably, evidence of exploration was observed at least 1 month prior to each public disclosure. As of this date, the number of identified victims has increased to 177. Among all, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea are the most affected. During these attacks, the threat actor deployed custom-built and modularized malware tools known as the Spawn malware family, specifically developed to target Ivanti Connect secure devices. This family consists of 5 components: an installer, a tunneler, an SSH backdoor, a log eraser, and a passive backdoor. Spawn Chimera is the latest addition to the family. First observed in March this year, Spawn Chimera operates as a passive backdoor without embedding C2 information, hijacking the upgrade module to communicate via a local socket while also embedding an SSH backdoor. In addition, it fixes the CVS 2025-0282 vulnerability to prevent further exploration by other threat actors. After compromising Ivanti Connect secure VPN devices and stealing credentials, the threat actors moved quickly to establish persistence. They deployed Spawn Chimera, their custom backdoor, to maintain long-term access. To advance deeper into the network, they activated Spawn Mode, configuring it as a SOC 5 proxy on compromised hosts. This allowed them to pivot laterally and explore internal systems. To avoid detention, they deployed Spawn Sloth to hijack the system's logs daemon and disable logging, effectively erasing their footprints and making it much harder for defenders to spot the intrusion. Through our investigations, we uncovered that the Chinese APT group, Slime68, also known as UNC 5337 or UNC 5221, has been actively exploring the Ivanti Connect secure vulnerabilities in a widespread campaign targeting Ivanti Connect secure appliances. Our intelligence unravels that Slime67 has infiltrated organizations across 21 countries, spamming critical sectors such as government, defense, finance, semiconductor, and aerospace. And among the most affected, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea emerged as the most heavily targeted. The nature of the victims, primarily large enterprises, central government agencies, and other high-value targets, indicates a highly targeted and strategic campaign. And as a side note, we've also observed another Chinese APT, Slime Extra Old, infiltrating Taiwanese hospitals using a single tool from the Spawn malware family, Spawn Molo. Unlike Slime67, which deployed the full suite of Spawn malware, Slime Extra Old only used Spawn Mode as a lightweight proxy. And based on our analysis, TeamT5 suspects that these victims may have been transferred from Slime68 to Slime Extra Old, or even to other threat actors for reasons that are still unclear. So in conclusion, attacking edge devices is no longer just an emerging threat. It's becoming a defining trend in modern APT operations. China, in particular, has spent decades developing world-class offensive cyber capabilities. Before 2017, Chinese teams regularly topped the leaderboard at Pawn to Win, the world's premier hacking competition. In 2018, they launched their own version, Tianfu Cup, to keep that expertise at home. Well, this investment has paid off. China is now able to acquire and weaponize zero-day vulnerabilities faster than most nations, thanks to a deep bench of domestic talents. If you look at the biggest edge device attacks in recent years, Barracuda, Fortinet, Ivanti, Citrix, Palo Alto Networks, even consumer-grade home routers, Chinese threat actors are in the mix almost every time. Now let's talk about the Ivanti case. It wasn't just another breach. It showcased China's ambition to use offensive cyber operations as a means of global infiltration and the technical length to pull it off. The group behind the attack, Slime68, showed remarkable skills in evading detention. They used a mix of edge device exploits, anti-forensics techniques, ORB networks, and low beams, making their malware nearly invisible. In some cases, even vendor support teams told victims there was no infection. That raised a chilling question. Do Chinese threat actors now understand these systems better than the vendor themselves? Now, that is the level of capability that we're dealing with. Well, that concludes the sharing from my side. Now I'd like to hand it over to Ben, who will walk you through how our feeds can be used in the platform EclecticIQ provides and help you defend those attacks. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Jay. Let me just move over to the platform. So for my portion of this presentation, my colleagues have shared with you some of the research and the intel that we're actually using. And I want to show you some of the capabilities that the Intel platform can provide. So we'll walk through some of the features, show you what data looks like in this environment, and some of the tools available to analysts when working with threat intel in the EclecticIQ Intelligence Center. Now, first things first, we've landed here on a dashboard. There is a full dashboard system built into the platform for you to visualize trends and activity across any sources of intel that have come into the platform. This particular view, supported by some automation rules, is showing me my trends across industries that I might be interested in tracking, whether I'm a government entity looking to track multiple industries, or maybe I'm focused inwardly on my own organization. These are fully customizable and can be updated, including filtering to specific sources or types of data. We can create as many of these dashboards as we want. For example, I have a dashboard focused on my intel requirements, which I can define and use as metadata within the platform. A pretty crucial way for us to clarify what intel we're collecting against our organizational requirements. This first one, for example, is showing us a breakdown of which of my sources are contributing to the requirements I've defined within the platform, helping me understand value across all of my intel feeds. Other widgets here are showing me the breakdown of the requirement types or categories that we might have defined. And one down here in the corner is actually showing me the specific PIRs that I've defined for my organization. We can then drill down into this information and explore the specific intel that we see as well. Now, in addition to visualization, there is a full search tool available for us to explore data within the platform. So across not just single sources, but multiple sources, I've collected all of my intel and normalized it into a single format. This gives me the tools I need to explore data in one structure rather than all the different structures typically provided by my intel vendors, my stakeholders, and my supply chain. The search language of the platform supports multilingual searches, and we can create searches to look for specific information. For example, maybe I'm only interested in industry tagged intel with MITRE ATT&CK information. We can see that the platform is helping me to apply some standards to my data as well. So we have things like TLP helping me support my sharing requirements. My intel requirements themselves, specific to my business, are added as metadata, so I can use this as a way to label my information. And MITRE ATT&CK is something that I use for technique analysis for all of my intel, as well as scoring for technical intelligence like indicators. So for all the different sources that I might be providing, all of this information is being normalized, brought into my platform, and then all of this value is being added. My own organizational perspective is being added on top of the intel. The platform provides interfaces for automating collection and export of data. You can create feeds within the platform to pull data from various sources. Here, for example, we're collecting data from TeamT5, both report and vulnerability intelligence, as well as detection rules and other supporting operational data. This is fully automated, so the data is collected for me, downloaded by the platform, and then made available for intel to be used within my organization. In this case, we're looking at CVEs that the TeamT5 team are tracking and exploit information that they've unearthed as part of their research. For every piece of data that we're looking at, the platform will then create links between this and other pieces of information. So if there are common links, such as indicators, threat actors, or malwares, the platform supports creating links between these pieces of data. Moving to the full graph tool, which Arda showed earlier briefly in his research, we can then see different types of data and their relationships. I have, for example, here a cluster of reports from TeamT5's feed, which allows me to view the reports themselves as well as any supporting information. For example, this report here with an awful lot of connections is one of the monthly reports that they publish, and we have access to the full data, including the original document available for review within the platform. The system has then taken that document, extracted things like MITRE ATT&CK, tag metadata, applied labels such as my own PIRs to the data, and all of this is information that I can use within the search tool, or I can take additional actions, such as extracting information further from the document, translating the document in case the document is in a foreign language, and also producing data from this as well. Another example I have here are 3 reports dedicated to maybe supply chain attacks within my organization. Here we have the reports themselves. Each report essentially is just a discussion of a supply chain threat or activity that we'd like to be informed on, and I've then provided some notes for each of these as well. So my team has room to apply their own insights to the data. So while we have a report from an external source, there's room for my team to apply their own insights and annotations, their own metadata, and I've also labeled this with one of my requirements, as you can see here. So using the platform, collecting data from these external sources, or also creating my own information, I can then add detail and add information that I need to. Once this information is added, I then have tools available to help me report on this. I can either create reports from scratch or select reports from my template library, allowing me to add branding and other information, or I can use some of the more advanced tools to automatically generate reports instead. This capability allows me to generate reports either from templates, or I can provide my own template to customize the content. In this case, let's say, for example, I'd like to create a summary report of some of the recent supply chain activity within my organization. I can ask the platform to generate this initial report for me, giving me time saved and then something that I can edit and make changes to before sharing this with my stakeholders. This is a common theme within the platform, collecting data from multiple sources, grouping and linking and organizing, performing investigations such as the one that Ardor was demonstrating his findings from. And then eventually, as you can see here, we now have a sort of initial report created for us, which we can then go in and edit, again, with some of the tools available to us to make changes. The platform intends to be a flexible workbench for analysts. So all of this data collection and processing is automated and done for us, giving you the tools for you to explore, create links, perform analysis, and understand threats within your environment. This also includes ad hoc investigations as well. For example, I might have a document such as this one, where we have some internal intelligence that's come into the platform automatically. You can also upload files at any time. In this case, it's a very simple example. I'm just showing an IP address that's been uploaded, and we have no further context. Within the platform, I gain access to enrichment tools, allowing us to do lookups as part of our investigation services. For example, we might have integrations with known services like VirusTotal, Showdown, or Modat, or TeamT5 in this case, where we can then enrich and ask for more information. This will then bring additional details into the platform from those external services for us to investigate further. In this case, TeamT5 have provided some analysis showing us that there's some information that they have on the IP address. Over time, these analyses can build up and help us understand different threats. So for all of the different investigations that we perform, for example, here's another enrichment or another monthly report as well. Each of these gives us additional detail, helping us understand threats and whether there's exposure to our infrastructure. As we saw before with generating a report, I could then take the summary of all of this information and once again summarize this into a report for my organization and then make changes before sharing this. In addition to all of these pivoting and exploration tools and data modeling, we also have tools to help you with organization of data in the form of workspaces, which allow us to create areas where we can save investigation artifacts, whether this is graph investigations, entities in particular, or even reports that we've created ourselves. For example, I have a space here for my finished intelligence where we can see reports that I've created within my organization, such as vulnerability advisories or actor profiles. And the platform is giving me a place to build this library over time. For each of these reports, we can then see the report if we need to, and we can track whether this has been exported or used elsewhere within the platform. For example, this has been emailed out to our DevOps team in the past, and we can see when this was shared, so we can track exposure and then resolution from end to end. All data is treated the same way. All of this metadata is available for all types of information, and all of the text and information from any entity is available within the search. So if we're interested in searching based on our requirements, then we can use that as part of our process. If we want to set up alerts to tell us when new intel comes in regarding certain threats, then we can create simple searches based on this information as well. Overall, this gives you a way to customize the environment and focus on threats that you're interested in as an organization, whether you're focused on primarily indicator intel, actors, malwares, or vulnerabilities. You can build the platform around these specific processes, and then you can integrate with internal and external sources or destinations for that data as well. A very common example of this is pushing data to your organization in the form of reports by email, sharing with teams who need to take action. You can push things like detection rules and IOCs directly to infrastructure. So if your intel vendors or sources provide this information, we want to fully automate these processes, helping you filter out noise and then deliver the key operational intel where it needs to go. The report writing tools help you with summarizing and understanding threats within the platform, and we support lots of different frameworks to help you do this as well. One such example is MITRE ATT&CK, which allows us to query for information based on the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Every individual entity, for example, one of these reports, provides a tool for automatically labeling data with these techniques. There's a built-in tool for you to make adjustments to this information as well. So if you want to make changes at any time, you can add and classify information yourself as well. And there's also a built-in tool to visualize this information. So in the sort of popular navigator style, where we want to understand the kill chain from left to right, this allows us to much more easily visualize that information. Like a lot of the other capabilities of the platform, this also leaves room for annotations and drill down to key information. So in this case, if we'd like to add some specific information about which AutoStar executions were used, I can add an annotation to this layer and then include that detail. Very useful when some of these frameworks are only trend frameworks and we want to add our own critical detail. I can also use this view to scope trends from multiple sources. So in this case, rather than just one report, maybe I want to visualize the overall trend that TeamT5's reported in the last month or two. And here we can now clearly see the techniques used by actors that they're tracking across the globe. Once again, I can drill down and I can see, let's say, which specific threats were using valid accounts. So based on the content of these two reports here, we just happen to have two different language versions available. Based on these two different reports, I can understand perhaps which actors are using valid accounts and maybe understand where they're procuring these or where my organization was breached in the past to make this possible. In addition to the capabilities I've shown so far, there's also additional features in the form of sandboxing, allowing you to process malware samples to get file and technique information. This can be brought back into the platform once the analysis is complete, allowing you to then leverage that intel as part of your investigations. Here we've got the report that's come back from the sandbox, and the platform has already started to do some cursory linking of the data, allowing us to link the original report and then use tools such as enrichment services for more information. So again, the goal is to give you as many interfaces as possible to bring in the key data that you need to make conclusions as part of your investigations. The last thing I'll talk about is intelligence requirements, which is one of our newer features. This allows us to label data as part of our various intel requirements unique to our organization, whether this is an internal set of IRs or IRs on behalf of various stakeholders that you may have. Each of these requirements has two modes that we can leverage. We can either match based on keywords, which is excellent for things like asset and infrastructure PIRs, or we can leverage LLM inference to match automatically as data comes in. My example here is focused on vulnerabilities for VPN systems. So not a specific list of assets, which I could do with keywords, but more of a generic requirement to remain informed on the state of the art in terms of which VPN systems are being exploited the most. The platform is doing some automated matching for all of the data that comes into the platform across all of my sources. So every piece of intel that I collect will be matched automatically to my intelligence requirements. This is what allows us to produce the visualizations that we saw earlier, where we're seeing which sources are the most useful, and the platform is performing this initial matching activity for me automatically. Over time, this platform becomes the knowledge base for your organization. This will be where you find all of your raw intel, your finished intel, your insights and organizational lens on the data that you've collected and worked with. Our goal is to reduce the sort of disparity of data in different silos and different parts of the organization. Rather than managing your IRs in a separate document, they're in the platform and directly labeling your intel. Rather than manually writing reports and keeping them in SharePoint or Google Docs, you can write these and store them directly linked to your intel within your intel platform. This platform serves both the executive class with the forms of trend analysis and visualizations and light reporting automation tools, as well as the analysts, giving them a full workbench of tools to perform investigations and figure out how to mitigate threats. That'll conclude my presentation for now for the platform. If you'd like to know more or you'd like to have a demonstration of the EclecticIQ Intelligence Center, please reach out to us and we'd love to walk through it further with you in more detail.
If you have any questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to get in touch via contact forms on the EclecticIQ website, via TeamT5. More than happy for you to connect on LinkedIn and send questions directly. But that's about it for today. So my thanks again to Jay, Arda and Ben for a great presentation. Thanks to all of you for attending and for your questions. Don't forget to check out the additional resources in the attachment section of the webinar here and visit eclecticIQ.com, TeamT5.org and follow us on LinkedIn and X to stay up to date with our latest content and events. Thank you and see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.